Hi guys, and welcome to another video aimed at helping you achieve the most success you can as a songwriter, both in terms of your craft and commercially. In this video, we're going to look at three really successful sets of songwriters who are very much in the news at the moment. Look at what it is that attracts people to their work and keeps them listening. And then by the end of the video, you're going to have learned some really solid techniques for writing lyrics, melodies, and chord progressions. And there's a challenge at the end to help you put together your own song with this new toolkit that you're about to acquire. So I hope you're excited to get started. In this video, we're going to talk about Stephen Sondheim, a master lyricist who, of course, died very recently, and his work is very much being played at the moment, and how he created emotional impact with his lyrics. We're going to talk about Bjorn and Benny of ABBA as songwriters. Of course, they've just had a staggering hit with their latest album, but we're going to look at one of their classic songs and how the chords, the melody, and the lyrics all work together to create something that has the wow factor. Then we're going to talk about the artist who knocked them off the top of the album chart, Adele. Adele is the queen of what we call confessional songwriters, someone who writes from her own life. But the way she writes about her own life almost makes you believe she's talking about your life. And we're going to look and see how it is that she does that. So I hope you're excited to get started with crafting a song like Sondheim, Bjorn Ulvaeus, and Benny Andersson, or Adele.
So Stephen Sondheim sadly died last week, and a lot of people are talking at the moment about what it was that made him such a great songwriter. Now, he wrote for the theatre, and if you're not writing music theatre, it's still worth looking at how Stephen Sondheim crafted a lyric, because it was all about believable characters, and you could really believe that the person singing the song would speak like this and think like this. He had, of course, been a student of Oscar Hammerstein II, who was famous for furthering story through song. And I actually think that Something Wonderful and If I Loved You from The King and I and Carousel, respectively, are two of my favourite lyrics ever. So Stephen Sondheim learned from him, and let's hear his approach to lyric writing. One of the hardest things about writing lyrics is to make the lyrics sit on the music in such a way you're not aware there was a writer there. This is so important because Stephen Sondheim is considered a great intellectual, obviously, and he did talk about some complex themes. Sweeney Todd is a very complex show, for example, but not writing in a way that sounds really literary or inaccessible. And I think that's something that beginner songwriters do. They're so afraid of cheese that they want everything to sound really deep and meaningful, and then the listener just ends up totally confused. So there's something about the directness and simplicity and believability of Stephen Sondheim's lyric writing. Nothing's gonna harm you, not while I'm around. It's such a beautiful, direct lyric. We're going to look at the lyrics in just a minute to a song called Losing My Mind. The sun comes up, I think about you. The coffee cup, I think about you. I want you so it's like I'm losing my mind. The morning ends, I think about you. I talk to friends, I think about you. And do they know it's like I'm losing my mind? So the phrasing is brilliant. It sits really well with the music, but so is the concept. All these little simple everyday things that are just happening whilst all the time she's thinking about this person. It's just such a simple, powerful concept, basically. So let's look at the other end of Sondheim's writing, how he crafted melodies. So I've been reading a lot about Sondheim this week, and I found this great phrase from the Guardian about melody being memory. Melody was merely a reflection of familiarity, as if all tunes were equal until dinned into a listener's memory. So what's important is that a good tune has to be a memorable tune, and I find that in my songwriting. If I write something and I come back to it later in the afternoon and I can't remember a note of it, it's probably not gonna wash. It's not a great tune. A good melody is something that you can remember quickly and hum back, and that usually involves having some kind of hook in it that makes it memorable. So now let's listen to a little bit of Losing My Mind and see if we can hear all this in practice.
I'm going to play the songs for this video because I would run into copyright issues basically if I used recordings, but these aren't performances. What I want you to listen for in this particular song is how the words just sit perfectly with the music. They scan properly. They're very everyday conversant speech. We can actually imagine the characters speaking in this way. This is Losing My Mind from Follies by Stephen Sondheim. The sun comes up, I think about you. The coffee cup, I think about you. I want you so, it's like I'm losing my mind. The morning ends, I think about you. I talk to friends and think about you. And do they know it's like I'm losing my mind?
So Bjorn and Benny on songwriting. There may have been a time when it was considered like a little bit uncool to say that you loved ABBA. I'm just going to come out and say I love ABBA. Eagle is one of my favourite songs of all time. They just wrote such strong and memorable melodies. But let's hear Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson thoughts on songwriting. So Benny said, every day I sit down and try. Most of the time it doesn't happen, but if I'm not there, it definitely won't happen. So this is an important thing. It's like to get better at writing, write all the time. And ABBA have often said in interviews, they just worked really hard. They wrote constantly. They were constantly in the studio. Not everything that you write or they wrote will be brilliant first time. And there's going to be a certain amount of dross in what you write. But it's like if you're not writing all the time and practicing, those genius moments just aren't going to happen. Benny said, for me, a song starts with a melody combined with chords. And you might write in another way. You might write lyrics first, for example. But that is how it worked for them, that the basic mood came from the harmonics, the chords, and then a tune. And then, in the words of Bjorn, a story would emerge from the music that said, this is who I am, this is me. So again, a bit like when we talked about Sondheim, it has to be authentic. Like, the lyrics have to sound believable for the characters singing the song. Now, I think because ABBA weren't native English speakers, some of their lyrics did clank, like, I'm possessive, it isn't nice. You'd have me saying smoking was my only vice. That kind of sounds a bit odd to a native English speaker, but then there were moments of genius because of the directness. No sound, not a single word from the breakfast table, though I would have liked to begin. You leave and you slam the door, like you've done many times before. And I cry and I feel so helpless. One man, one woman, two friends and two true lovers. Like sometimes it just, like the directness of it just really worked. Let's hear this philosophy in practice in one of their most famous songs.
Okay, so two people who know more about music than anyone else I can think of, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus of ABBA. So we heard Benny talk about how they started with the harmonics, the chords and the melody, and really the story came out of that. And Bjorn said the same thing, that basically the melody suggested a story and that story had to ring true. So I'm going to kind of try and piece together what they did with one of their most famous songs. I'm going to play you a chord sequence and I want you to guess which ABBA song this is, just from the chorus chord sequence. And it's not a standard 1-4-5 with the relative minor, which could be any song. It's very distinctive and it has a very distinctive vibe to it. So let's listen to this series of chords. Very dark, isn't it? So we know that it's not going to be a sort of upbeat, chirpy sentiment. It's going to be something maybe slightly melancholy, but it's also fast and it's got a bit of energy. So could you guess the song? Okay, let's add the lyrics. Gimme, 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 I'm man after midnight. Won't somebody help me chase the shadows away? Gimme, 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 I'm man after midnight. Take me through the darkness to the break of the day. Did you get it? So that whole very minor, it's after midnight, she's in the flat all alone. That chord sequence, that sense of darkness has suggested that story.
So the woman that knocked ABBA off the top of the album charts and is currently having staggering international success, that is Adele. And I think the huge success of Adele owes to the fact that people relate to her. People relate to her story as it comes across in her songs. And when they hear her singing about herself, they apply it to their own lives. And like my songwriting tutor, when I did my degree in songwriting, said that a good song makes you believe that it's the singer's story, but a great song makes you believe as the listener that it's your story. And I think Adele's success is because she has that gift. So she said, the way I write my songs is that I have to believe what I'm writing about, and that's why they always end up being so personal, because the kind of artists I like, they convince me this song is totally about me. Now, sometimes as a songwriter, because I'm more a songwriter, I'm also an artist, but mostly a songwriter, I'm writing other people's stories or helping them to write their stories, so I'm not always talking about myself. And I think you can write other people's stories so long as you really genuinely get those stories from those people. And there is some kind of authenticity about it, so that when people hear the song, it really rings true and they might be able to see their own life in it. So let's hear a little bit of Adele's writing and sort of think about how this works and why it works.
Okay, so what Adele is known for as a songwriter is really singing from her own heart, but in a way that when other people hear her story, they almost believe like it's theirs, like they recognize the sentiment. And how she does that is with very cluttered, direct lyrics, the way that you would speak to another person. Let's hear an example of that in the chorus of Hello. So, hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. When I call, you never seem to be home. That is a conversation that you might have. You know, I'm sorry, when I call, you never seem to be home. You know, that is so applicable to so many situations in so many people's lives.
So you've had advice from some very famous and very successful songwriters in this video. Now let's use that advice to craft your own song. So here comes the really important part, the challenge. The first thing I'd like you to do as part of the challenge is put together a chord sequence that feels like it tells an interesting story. Like we heard in the ABBA section of the video, the story is often in the chords. So I don't want to hear a standard 1-4-5 with a relative minor, for example, C, F, G and A minor, because that's just been in millions of songs. If you're not an instrumentalist, if you're more a singer, you can use a backing track for this part of the challenge, but just try and use an interesting one that has a strong mood to go with it. So listen to your chords and think about, what does the mood of the chords suggest to you as a theme? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it summer? Is it winter? Is it joy? Is it love? Is it hate? Just write down all the emotion words that you can think of that go with the sound that you've just created, and then relate that to your own experience or to somebody that you know well. And from there, come up with a title that describes the theme. Then it's all about actually writing the song. So just go ahead and tell your story. When you've told your story, feel free to post it in the comments, link to it in the comments here for feedback from me and from other viewers of the video. Or you can email me at info@evewilliamsmusic.com if you would like more private feedback. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I hope that you've learned as much as I have through thinking about these great songwriters. And I'm wishing you every success in your songwriting. And I'll see you in the next video. And to make sure that happens, please do subscribe.